All right, we're ready. Oh my gosh, we're going to have such a wonderful evening. This is the third Tales on the Tundra. You might not recognize me because the last time I was up here, I was the tea kettle ghost. Anybody remember that? Tonight, I'm Beverly Hoffman. I was born and raised here in Bethel, Chapter 1, before Alaska became a state. That's how young I am. There was no running water, no flush toilets, no cell phones, no internet. We didn't even know what the word computer was. I grew up in a family of 9 siblings. And if you wash clothes in a wringer washer, anybody remember the wringer washers? Okay, first was the whites, next was the shirts, then was the jeans, and then there were no Pampers. It was Nucky diapers. I guess you guys don't know what Nucky diapers are. Okay, I know it was horrible. So whenever I hear people complain about GCI, their television, the washing, I just laugh. I laugh at you. But anyway, you guys, we're in for treats tonight. And I just want to tell you how it happens. It's people from the Southwest Alaska Arts Group, KYUK, give them a big hand. The Kuskokwim Consortium Library, and KYUK. And I am telling you, today we were practicing our stories and all that, and it was such a delight. So you are all in for a treat tonight. It's the last day of summer. Don't be too sad, because tomorrow is the first day of fall. And then winter is coming. Hey, I love winter. Come on, cheer. Winter's good. Anyway, we had a rainy summer, so bring on winter. These guys, there's Nate. He's the guy you just clapped for. Doesn't he look good next to Kevin and Shane and Paul? They are called, Nate, we were going to take off N if you didn't show up, but it's all their first initials, PNKS. Give them a hand.
Good evening. So there was a discussion a month or two ago about what we would play tonight, and we were trying to settle on a theme of some kind. And we decided to do songs from the Tundra, and we're going to play a couple of our own songs, but we're going to play a couple songs by other songwriters from the region. This first song is by Jacques Longpré, a friend of ours. And Jacques is going to be here in November for the next edition of Bethel Parlor in the Round. So this is a little preview of Jacques' song. This is called Oregon.
I met a man in a bar somewhere in Oregon. He screamed at the television. He said, "Hey man, you're only what you gave to them. You're only what you gave to them. What have you given them?" Down, 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 down on my knees again. Please, please, please save me. Down, 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 down on my knees again. please, please save me. Oh, I get down. And that man in Oregon, he screams at the television. He says, forget those damn politicians. So good for nothing. It's so good for nothing. Down, 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 down on my knees again. Please, please, please save me. Down, 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 down on my knees again. Please, please, please save me. Oh, I get down, 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 down on my knees again. Please, please, please save me. Oh, I get down.
Thank you. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Right before COVID, I asked Kevin, can you teach an old gal that can't sing and has never played anything in her life how to play the ukulele? Because I wanted to play Grateful Dead songs, and he did. He hasn't heard me since because we couldn't keep practicing because of COVID. And I think you guys can back me up sometime, okay?
Sounds great.
You guys, when I grow up, I want to be like this next gal. She's so special to me. She's been a part of my life, all my life, and I think we're just blessed to have her. And I'd like to call her to the stage, our very own Miss Esther Green. In your arms. All right, Esther. Okay, you good? Keep going, James. He'll help you there. That farmer.
There's so many options.
I know. That's why we've got this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that low enough, too?
This is police chief. I didn't do anything.
I
Okay. All right. Here, I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to put this right here. Just don't pay any attention to me. Okay.
So good to see, so good to be with everyone this evening. And I'm so glad the lights are beaming on me. I can't see anybody. Okay, thank you, Beth. When I first came down to Bethel, there were just only few houses alongside of the river. And there was Bev's parents, Dorothy and Jimmy Hoffman. And there was Nervis, Johnny Nervis, Chris Nervis and Sons Trading Post. And on the side there was Alice and Johnny Nervis' house. I can very well picture. And little further away was Julia Nicholson and her husband. Oh, you knew everybody. That time. And in our post office there was Maggie Cirillo, a postmaster. Maybe some of you remember her. And I used to babysit for, I had odd jobs just to try to help my mom make the ends meet. I used to babysit for Dorothy and Jimmy Hoffman. I didn't see Bev, or maybe she wasn't born.
Yeah, I wasn't born yet.
But anyway, I used to watch Jimmy Hoffman, little boy, and Marilyn, and Jareen.
I guess I wasn't born yet.
And those two kids were using cloth diapers. In those days, when we used to wash by hand, washboard, wring them, rinse them, wring them, and we hang them outdoors. That was golden days. Like Bev said, there was no electricity. Oh, there was some, but there was no, it wasn't a push-button world. You had to work all the time. And you know, to take care of the diapers, there's peeing there, there's anakin there. And I had a coffee can, you know, the cover, no plastic, but it was metal, folded in half. That was my big help, scrape off the poop from the Pampers or diapers. That was cool. Yeah. In my time, it was cool. But anyway, I went to school in Log Cabin School. I witnessed some uncomfortable rated R things in our school. Many of you probably have read about them in a book, in the history books. But anyway, I'm glad that's over. I'm glad it's not happening now. That's a blessing. So in my journey, life journey, Like I said before, I had odd jobs, babysitting jobs, house cleaning jobs. And lo and behold, as the time rolled along, the Hoffmans didn't live in their house anymore, but their house where Beverly and her siblings grew up became a parental home. And I worked there for 4 years as nurse's aide. It was called the prematernal home, the very, very first one. And you know how much I used to earn that time? Boy, when I get paid, oh man, I thought I was the richest girl in the world. $400 a month. That was cool. Oh, made me proud. And babysitting jobs, some were 50 cents a day, some were $1 a day. So I worked, when I realized $1 was like $1 million to me, I chose to stay on $1 a day. And when month passed, or in 1 month, if the month has 30 days, that's my paycheck, $30. But everything, every little thing I appreciated at that time. And I was so blessed having job here and there, over there. There was not much earnings we did those days. And then I got called one day, "Do you want to be a teacher?" Yay! I screamed. And this was Fairbanks. Irene Reed called me and asked me if I want to be a Yupiit teacher. I screamed and hollered. I told her, that's one thing I want to do. Having had experience with the little kids, being a Sunday school teacher when I was young. So I quit my job, and we had to go to Fairbanks for 6 weeks. 6 weeks training. Then we came back. Then I went straight to work for LKSD. At that time, the school was under SOS. So I don't remember who was the principal at that time. But while I was working there, 4 principals. I went through 4 principals. The last one was Sue here, last principal. And during around that time, the LKSD sent us to Anchorage for some kind of, not me, because I was new. I was being trained by somebody else. All the others go training or something. But one time, they included me, and it was going to be my first trip to Anchorage. Oh, man. In Anchorage, we had workshop. So many days, I don't remember how many days. But in our last day, from the area where we were in training, I guess the director said, we're going to Captain Cook Hotel to eat together on our last day. And that's what we did the next morning. The bus took us to Captain Cook Hotel. And I was so amazed at how we were served instead of getting it ourselves. And not long before I start working for SOS, I had done away with my alcohol addiction. So in that dining hall, huge room, full of tables, and all of us were seated there, and we wait, of course, we wait and wait and wait. My stomach was growling. I asked one of the people, where's the bathroom? I need to go bathroom. This person says, you go that way, and when you go that way, you turn this way, 2 doors, and the 3rd door is where you go in. Okay. So I went, and I got lost. Me being there for the very first time, I got lost. But anyway, I came to this door, and I went in. I was amazed. I see those white things. How many of them? And I was looking at them. What are these for? Maybe they wash their feet. Maybe they wash their feet in the bathroom. So I did my thing. When I was done, I looked around. There was a little door over there on that side of the wall. Little door. There were some things in there, and the light was on. And I wondered how come that little door is so small. It's not like the other doors. So I said, I'm going to take a peek since I'm here alone. I went over, I bent down, and I appeared. And I didn't even know it was the mayor. And then, so, before anybody come in, it was time for me to go. So I went out. One of the ladies was walking by and said, "Esther, what are you doing in there?" I had to go bathroom. You know what? That's men's bathroom. I was so lucky. No man came in. I was done with my business. So I went back, and the waitress was pouring some juice. I asked the lady, "What's this?" Because it looked like a shot, drink, alcohol in a glass. She said, "That's Coke." Oh my goodness. I couldn't drink Coke because I used to use it as a kick with my heavy drink. I couldn't drink 7-Up because it tastes like wine to me. But anyway, you know, my mind was somehow, but anyway, well, this is given to me. Whether I like it or whether I want to or not, I got to drink it because the person gave it to me. If I didn't drink it, I might hurt their feeling. So I tried. Even I didn't like it. Halfway done, I couldn't take it anymore. You know how it is in the restaurants? Once people start talking, they go ba 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 ba. And it went on like that, and I was shy. I didn't want anyone to notice me. And then because I drank Coke, I want to burp. So I thought to myself, so people won't notice I burp, I'm going to burp through my nose. I was sitting down, and so here comes, and then I let it through my nose. And it happened to be not so noisy. Man, it burnt my nose, and I went, I didn't want anyone to notice me, but everyone was looking at me. Well, before all of this, when we were waiting for some other people to come in the porch or somewhere, we went in. We went in and I saw another door and people still going in and out and cars going back and forth. And there I was coming in. "Oh, you can go through." So to get away from people, I put myself aside on the wall somewhere there. And I watched everyone. Everybody was looking. They were minding their own business. And even I tried to say hi, they won't turn their head. Before that, one of the instructors was telling me, don't say hi to anyone. That was not my way. But anyway, I had to do it because of the way how the people act. They don't look at anyone. They just mind their own business, and then they pass by. Ooh, this is weird. Where I come from, everybody greet each other. Everybody is friendly to each other. Everybody stop and talk. Ooh, it wasn't like that. So I was looking around, and I saw right across me a person. She looked familiar, but I wasn't sure. Whenever I look at her, she's looking at me. And I was glad at least she noticed me. When I smile, she smiles at me. When I wave, she waves at me. I was so grateful for her. Among all these people who are minding their own business, one person, one special person, did not leave me alone. And I was so happy for her. And then because of the traffic there, people, I moved somewhere else. Right there when I moved, I looked around. That lady who was being friends with me she moved when I moved. I was so glad. But then when I scratched my head, she scratched her head. She was using my clothes, but it was the mirror, and I was being friendly with my reflection.
Esther, that was good.
I was puzzled because I have never been to Anchorage before or beyond. Just Bethel and my hometown, Nunapitchuk. Bethel, my hometown. That's how far I went from my little village. And with this, I just want to share my first trip to Anchorage and what happened to me.
Esther. Is this on? Oh, Esther, hang on there, girl. You know why you didn't remember me? Because of all my 9 siblings, I was the quietest and the nicest, right? I grew up in Front Street Cafe. That's what it is now today. And Esther was a big part of our family. My dad, at 8 years old, went to Nunavutchuk to live with Datu and Mary. And I think that's why you're a part of our family always. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
These are my last, well, I hope it's not my last blooms out of my garden, but these are for you to enjoy. And then the police chief will come and help you. Yeah, so flowers for Esther. Okay, I love you.
Thank you for listening to me.
And away to our police chief she goes. Oh, can somebody come grab this for her, please? Brianna. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to be like her when I grow up. 86 years old, and she's still teaching. What am I doing? Oh, water. Yes. Yeah, you're doing a pretty good job. Anybody else need help, he'll be right there. Okay, yeah. Okay, next, I met this gal when she first came into town, played basketball with her and all, and she was really tough on the basketball court, but great at physical therapy. And I want to introduce to you our next storyteller, Ann Kosacheff. Give her a hand. And I still have to see her.
Job security.
Yeah.
So there's more stuff up here than there was when we were practicing, so I might have a little bit of difficulty as I go on with this story. Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Kosacheff. I've been here since 1995, and I just want to say when I came, both Bev and Esther had dark hair, so it was a minute ago. And things were a lot different, so that seems to be a theme here. So far, everyone's talked about how things were, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about how things were. Is there anybody here that was here in 1995 besides me and Bev? All kinds of people. Oh my gosh, there's medical people. Okay, you cannot give the end away. This is a little bit about medical stuff. It's a little bit about weather. It's a little bit about planes and just adventures. So there's a lot to get over, and it's not going to take 7 minutes. Sorry, I'm not going to be done in 7 minutes. No one's timing this, I don't think, so that's good. So back in the day, so there's several data points. Back in the day, they used to have combi planes where Alaska Airlines jet would be cargo in the front and party in the back. I mean, passengers in the back. Rows 17 through 30, whatever, was passengers, and then the front was cargo. So you go in and out on the back stairs, which was normal, right, for us. And so if there was a patient who needed to go to Anchorage sort of emergently, Joe's nodded and said, yeah. Get on with the story, Ann. So we had to put him on a backboard in a Stokes basket. Does anybody know what a Stokes basket is? It's Joe, me and Joe, that's it. So it's a great big basket made of plastic, and you can put a backboard in it, and it can probably fit somebody who might be 6'5"-ish. That's about how long it is. But there's handles so you can easily carry it over the tundra or off a battlefield or for a long way, say from an ambulance into a plane. And so YK would reserve 9 seats in a box and then fold the seats down, and then the Stokes basket would be securely tied down, and then the escort, which was sometimes me if it was a very, very stable patient, would sit in the seat and then take the patient into Anchorage. And they let me do medevacs. They let me do medical transports because I was a medical professional and I took a 3-hour class called medical transport class. And I was kind of gullible. They'd say, hey, Ann, do you want to go to Anchorage for the night? Yeah, okay, cool. What do I have to do? And back in the old hospital, well, not the old hospital, but the newer old hospital, the ER was right here, and there was a little door, a little hallway, and then the PT department was right there, and that was me. And then I didn't have a copier in my office, so I had to like go into the ER. So we were buddies, us ER PT people. So they knew me and they knew my name and they knew I was gullible. So I said, oh, sure, I'll go to Anchorage. So that's all the background. So this was a beautiful winter day in Bethel, Alaska. And there was a sick patient that had to go to Anchorage. And it was after the jet had already flown. So right now we have 2 paramedics on staff in Bethel getting people from the villages to Bethel. And then we have a King Air that's just waiting to get called so we can come and pick up people by the time they're ready to go, like the planes on the ground. Well, we didn't have any of that. We had caravans and King Airs and not any sort of medical equipment in there at all. So they would just take all the chairs out, and then the plane would be about half as big as this back part of the stage. So on this particular night, it wasn't a dark and stormy night, but it was dark because it was wintertime. There were 2 patients. One was alert and oriented ×5 and walking, but had a fractured arm or something. What my patient, so I don't know a lot of details about that. My patient was intubated and consciously sedated. I did not have to do anything about that. I'm not a nurse. My friend Sarah, who was a nurse, took care of the patient, and I was the one that had to breathe for the patient all the way to Anchorage. And now the jet takes an hour to go to Anchorage, and the small plane, takes longer. So this was me for about an hour and a half on the plane. Let me see if I can do this with all this stuff in here. So this is me on the plane for an hour, breathing for this man every 5 to 6 seconds. And Sarah's saying, don't breathe so fast. Push a little harder. And she was taking care of the whole patient. And I'm here, oops, that's loud. And here I am for an hour and a half, going to Anchorage. And so I'm facing backwards, of course. I'm facing toward Bethel, and the front of the plane's up here. And I'm breathing. And then we get to Anchorage. And the pilot turns around and he says, hey, weather's going down. We might have to go to Fairbanks. And I was like, I have to go to work in the morning. How am I going to get to work in the morning from Fairbanks? It's never going to work. And the windows on the plane, you couldn't really see out, but if you looked, you could start to see the sky. And I happened to glance out, and it wasn't the sky. It was a horizon line, but it wasn't level. It was sort of like 45 degrees with red lights and white lights and like snow like flying by. And I was like, I'm just going to focus on my job right here. I don't even care what's going on out there. Just going to breathe every 5 to 6 seconds for this man. So we made it to Anchorage. We landed in Anchorage. And we got the patient to the ambulance, into the hospital. I don't remember much about that part of the story. I remember like the exciting parts. And then I came back to work. So when we would do this, we would go to Anchorage. They'd put us up in a hotel. We'd go back, fly, because we had a morning jet every morning. We could go whenever we wanted for a whole day. Come back in the morning, work all day. So that was like kind of a long day. And at the end of that day, the ER staff was like, hey, Ann, do you want to go to Anchorage? No, I don't. I'm going home now. And I'm sorry I don't have a good report on how the patient did. I never did follow up on that. And I'm
very, very well.
Sure he lived to a ripe old age.
When we were practicing, she didn't kneel down, and I said, you have to kneel down, that's part of the story. And she said, I might not be able to get up. She did it very well. And we're so glad you're still in physical therapy. I missed my last appointment, and I was apologizing, and I said, I need you. Anyway, folks, we're going to continue on our last, not our last, before the intermission, We have a storyteller that's been here a long time too, and we're so happy she moved to Bethel. Just love her. Give a big hand for Diane McEachern. You might remember, if you listen to Friday Talk Line, it's Diane.
Welcome to Talkline. So this story starts one way and it ends another. Back in the 1960s, when my mom and dad were about 22, 23, they had 3 children under the age of 5, which is a lot for young people back then. My father was a Marine in the military, and we lived on a military base. Thing about my father, though, was he was kind of rough. He was very violent, and he drank a lot. And I don't know about other women, but my mom might have been one of the ones to really pray he would get sent to Vietnam. And he did. He went to Vietnam, and during that time, women weren't allowed to file divorce when men were over in Vietnam. So she laid all the groundwork so that when he returned, we would be able to leave, which happened. And I didn't see my father for 39 plus years. And the thing about my father was, I loved my father as a little girl. I was about 7 when he left, and I remember asking him if he would marry me. And he chuckled and said, "No, I'm already married." And so I always had that combination of being really fearful, but also loving my father. And his name's Roy. The thing about my mom and my father, Roy, and my stepfather, they were all 3 only children. That means I had no direct aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, or great-grandparents, because my grandparents had passed away before I was born. I had one grandmother, and she passed away when I was 20. Well then, 26 years later, I moved to Bethel, the land of aunts, uncles, cousins, cousins of cousins, grandparents, and great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents. And I was overwhelmed because I hadn't grown up in that kind of situation, as you can well imagine. And what I really have appreciated about the Yupiit culture is that connectedness, the way we're connected to all things, each other, the land. And it kind of got me thinking, I wonder, 40 years later, should I try and find Roy? And then I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. It's been so long, and no big deal. But I would say to Esther and other elders, I don't know if you know this, but I have a father, but I haven't seen him in a long time. And Esther would say, "Oh, well, he's still your father," like very factually, and you're still his daughter, so if you want to find him, you should find him. And I said, wow, okay, and I thought about it, and I decided to try and find my father, and I did a little bit of research. It took me a while, but I found Roy Francis McEachern. Roy Francis McEachern's birthday, day, month, and year is the exact same as Esther Green's, which was crazy. And there was and I had a phone number. So I call up my mom and I go, "Hey, Mom, I think I found Roy." Now, the thing about people who, my mom and Roy are from Boston, and so sarcasm and teasing is a big part of our sense of humor. And I heard that in my mom's voice because she said, "Hey, don't call him. Let me have first crack at him." I was like, "Yes, Mom, go get him." And so she called him. And they talked for a few hours, just kind of talking about life and what had happened and where they all been. And he said to her, "Hey, I'm not ready for Diane to call me. Let me do some things first." And what he did was he went to his doctor to get anti-anxiety medication because now he's freaked out. And then 2 weeks later, he calls my mom and says, "Okay, I'm ready." So I worked up my nerve and I made the call. And I said, "Hey, Roy, it's Diane, your favorite," kind of like a child would do. And he, with his sense of humor, said, "Well, what took you so long?" I said, "I get that." I said, "But I had something up my sleeve." I said, "Hey, listen, Roy, I have been in touch with the Oprah Winfrey Show, and the producers, they're interested in our story, and so I'm going to record the call." And I hear, Heck no, I guess there's kids here. Sorry. Heck no, I'm not going on no Oprah Winfrey show. And there's a long pause, and I start laughing, and then he gets it, and he goes, huh, okay, you got me. And I said, that's what you get for not raising me. And we laughed, and we had our conversation. I asked him some really hard questions, like, when did you stop drinking? 12 years ago. Okay. Any other kids, partners, wives? Nope. Here's my hard question. What did you do every Father's Day? You had 3 children in the world. And he said, you know, Diane, men like me, Marines, we're tough, and I put all of you 3 kids in a box. I covered that box, and I never opened it. He said, I didn't have the courage. And I said, oh, okay, wow, well, the box is open now. We actually had ourselves a little family reunion with my brother, my sister, my mom, and Roy. And it worked out okay. And so Roy really stepped up. He went to California to visit my brother. He went to Massachusetts to visit my sister. He came to Bethel, Alaska to visit Diane. And I took him on Tundra walks, and he got to meet Esther and other people in the community, and it was really awesome. So he, the other part of it was, so there was a time when we got to get together again, and we were talking, and he said, you know, I've looked back on my life, and I want you to know that I was really bad to you and your mom and your brother and sister. I was very violent. He said, and I think the way I behaved toward your mother made it hard for her to be a good mother. And I'm wondering if you carry any resentment or if you have any hard feelings about that. I'd like you to take that off your mother's shoulders and put it on mine. And I'm going to carry that for the rest of my life because I did that. And your mother, you kids, you never deserved any of that. Now I'm crying at this point. I'm like, oh my God, oh, that's so beautiful. And I said, wow, how did you even know to say that? I said, did you go to therapy? Hell no. Therapy? No, Diane, I did not go to therapy. But I owned a dive bar in North Carolina, and when the men came in and they told their stories and talked with each other, I found myself in those men, and it made me reflect on my own life. I said, wow, okay, that's awesome. So the other thing I really appreciate about Yupiit culture that's helping me be able to do this is acceptance. Acceptance of the world around us, life, weather, really striving for acceptance. So I accepted Roy exactly as he was. He wasn't the man he was in the 60s. I wasn't that little girl anymore. So we didn't talk a lot about the past. We kind of stayed current, and it was really wonderful. One of the experiences we also had was one time when we were able to hang out a little bit. He said, hey, you know, I'll bet if you were old enough in the 1960s, I'm thinking you would have protested against the Vietnam War. And I said, well, yeah, but again, that's what you get when you don't raise your children. They become very liberal compared to you. And he laughed. We had a good time with that. And he said, well, I have something I'd like to give you. He was in Vietnam, he was a helicopter mechanic. And but he had gotten some special awards. And he wanted to give me one of his medals. And he said, would you be willing to take one of my medals? And I mean, I was really touched by that because that was very beautiful. And I said, of course, I would love to have one of your medals, and I'll take good care of it, and thank you very much for being willing to give me that. And so we had 12 awesome years with Roy, and I'm so grateful, and I really thank Yupiit culture for all that it did to help me have the courage to find my father. Thank you.
When I first heard this story and we had a little break, I ran home and I put tissue right there. So if anybody needs tissue, it's right there. Thank you, Diane, for sharing that, because I also went home and I go, oh my God, Diane's story, Finding Roy. And yeah, forgiveness is so important, and I'm happy for that story. Okay, now that Nate has flown in, we're going to hear from PNKS again before intermission.
How many holes are in a pallet bread cracker?
Hey, Paul, we lost power on this side of the stage.
28 holes? Is that counting both sides or just one side? Swag had a really great trivia night on Wednesday. That was one of the questions on there. So usually when we play together, there's the Whalen Sisters, and they always force us, or I shouldn't say force us, they suggest that we dress up, and we have some sort of theme. And they're traveling, you know, they're globetrotting somewhere. So the rest of us had a discussion about what are we going to wear? Are we going to dress up? What's going to happen? And I thought that we agreed on wearing a shirt and a tie. Anyway, so this is what happens when you don't have the Whalen Sisters in the band. It's like this is about how organized we can get without them. How you doing over there, Paul?
We're getting there.
Okay. Yeah. So growing up, so Paul had a great idea. When it was this gig came up, Paul said, "Hey, let's play songs from the Tundra. You know, some songs from the Tundra." So Paul played a song by Jacques Longprix, longtime Bethel person, who lives in Homer now. And I'm going to play a song by Robert Gregory. Robert Gregory. And the first time I heard this song was maybe 30 years ago. And if you wanted, he made music and recorded it at his house. And if you wanted to listen to it, you had to go to him and write him a check, and he'd make you a mixtape of all the stuff, all of his songs. And, you know, there was no guarantee it was going to be on that tape. You just got to trust him. It was like, here's, you know, $10. And I think when I first bought a tape from him, he said, I think $10 or give me like a Folgers coffee, and we'll call it even. And it was a really great album. And I basically wore the tape out, his music. And his name's Robert Gregory, but a lot of people know him by Bobby. He's still in town. But back in the day, his name was Mad Dog Gregory. And if you go in the 100 Years of Bethel, there's the Electric Air Band, and he's one of those young kids in the 100 Years of Bethel book. But his songs are really great. And so we're going to play a song by him called I, also known as She. You know that she looks so fine. And you know that she's all mine. I just sit there, give her all of my time. She wants me, she needs me, she loves me, and I. And when she goes to bed at night, she wakes up by my side. And when day passes by, I still have her sweet smile still in my mind. And when she wants to be alone, I just sit there and don't call her on the phone. She wants me, she needs me, she loves me, and I. She wants me, she needs me, she loves me, and I wants me, she needs me, she loves me, and I. Thank you.
And so with all that, I want to introduce you. My new neighbor, she just bought the house next to me, Theresa Quiner.
It's a landmine up here. Hi, everybody. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Theresa, and I moved to Bethel back in 2015 to work in the library across the hall. So, like many people experience when they moved to Bethel, the library had been short-staffed for a while, and my supervisor was really desperate to keep her new employee happy so that I would stay. So pretty quickly, she introduced me to her friend Sarah, who was one of those people that I just immediately bonded with. She very quickly became my Bethel family in the way that your friends do when you live in a remote town on the tundra and you don't know anybody. So one of the things that we really bonded over was that we love animals. And she and I both had pretty quickly started volunteering with the animal rescue, Bethel Friends of Canines, after we moved here. The result, of course, is that we both had a couple of crazy rescue dogs. There was always a lot of dog energy, and it was always a little chaotic. So anyway, I'm going to tell you the story of our friendship. The first time I invite her over to my house, we're coming back from the sand pit. We're packed in her car, me and all the dogs. It's very nuts. So we come into my house with all the dogs. And I also had 2 cats at the time. And it turns out that her dog, Winton, had a little bit of a fetish. He really liked cats. So he looks over at my cats, and he gets so excited that he takes a shit on my living room floor. Well, Masha, her other dog, didn't want to be outdone, and she also took a shit on my living room floor. Now, you need to understand that Sarah was a genteel Southern lady from Texas, and she was beyond mortified. She was very convinced that our friendship was over before it had hardly begun. Personally, I couldn't stop laughing. What else are you gonna do? Well, I had a puppy at the time. Well, I still have this puppy. Her name is Frances. She was a couple of months old, and in her very short life, had consistently been yelled at for shitting on the living room floor. Well, you think you know what happens. She joined in on the fun and shat on the living room floor. Now, at this point, Sarah was not crying anymore. We were both laughing hysterically, and our friendship was sealed with those piles of shit on the living room floor. This really set the tone going forward for the rest of our friendship. Unfortunately, maybe. Anyway, so she and I do everything together. Our dogs are always with us. We're always constantly trying to rein in the chaos of our crazy dogs. Pretty unsuccessfully, mind you. So anyway, flash forward a couple years. She tells me something that nobody in Bethel wants to hear. If you've lived here for 30 seconds, you understand my agony when she told me she was moving to Anchorage. I tried to be supportive. I think I did a pretty good job. So, her last night in town comes, and she's staying with me, her and her dogs. Now, at the time, I was the cat lady for Bethel Friends of Canines. So any cat calls that came in, cat rescues, they got funneled to me. So we got this call that somebody had a rabid cat in their yard. I look at Sarah. This is not how we were planning on spending her last evening in Bethel. And I said, well, I have no idea what to do. Let's go. So we get to this person's house. This very nice couple meets us in their driveway. And they say, look at that cat over there. We think it has rabies. So I look over. The cat is foaming at the mouth. It's showing signs of paralysis. And its mouth is moving really weird. I assess very quickly that this is beyond something that we should be handling on our own. And I call the police department. I step away, and I'm on the phone, and I'm talking to the police officer. Well, Sarah, instead of stepping away, had walked up to the cat. Well, Sarah had a really big heart, but sometimes she thought with her heart a little bit more than she thought with her brain. So as I look over there, she is bending over and trying to hand feed this cat some wet food because she thinks it's hungry. I do think we all know where this is going. She got bit straight through the hand. The police officer gets there. The situation has at this point escalated a bit. Somehow the officer gets that cat into a carrier and there's no further injury. And I take my dear friend to the emergency room for her last night in Bethel. This is very in line with our friendship. But we get there. The hospital, like anywhere else in town, experiences some turnover at times. And the medical professional that we interacted with, I think perhaps was new to town and did not understand rabies protocol. He looks, we're talking to him, and he's like, I really don't know what to do. Let's call Bethel Friends of Canines. She and I look at each other and, say, that's us. librarian, social worker. We really need a doctor here. It all worked out, though. They got her patched up. They cleaned out her wound. Thankfully, they held off on doing the rabies shots that night. And the cat, I hate to say this, thankfully died that night, which is good because it was shipped to the lab where it was tested, and it turned out not to have rabies, which is good because she had ended her employment in Bethel, was between jobs, and didn't have health insurance. Those shots are very expensive, and I've heard very painful. So anyway, she's in Anchorage for several years. We see each other constantly, frequently enough that we laugh that we have monthly visitation rights with each other. A couple years later, though, I'm not able to go visit her on her birthday, so I gave her a call to wish her happy birthday and ask her how she was doing. It turns out she really wasn't doing very well. She had gone to the dog park, of course, and a dog had barreled into her and knocked her over. And ever since then, she'd been experiencing crippling medical issues, like headaches and dizziness. She couldn't work. And at first, of course, they thought it was a concussion, and that's what we hoped was wrong. Concussions frequently heal. Well, they couldn't figure out what was wrong, and she kept going in for test after test, and a lot of really scary diagnoses were discussed. The one that she ended up getting was the scariest of all. At the age of 35, she was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal breast cancer. Her life changed really quickly at that point. Her mom, Donna, moved up from Texas and was there with her while she went through that really stressful time of going in for chemo, trying to work full-time, and trying to hold on to her precious employment-based health insurance. She had very limited sick leave. And then the pandemic hit, and we all know what that means for somebody with a terminal illness. Her world got even smaller. But I have to say that these two women, her mom, Donna, and Sarah, were some of the strongest and most joyful women I've ever known. And they rolled through that roller coaster of life with so much laughter and joy that they had so much fun at chemo that their laughter was bothering the other patients, and they had to be shushed by their nurses. Sarah passed away on July 17th, 2022. I miss my friend so much. She was so important to me. We had so much fun together. There was always crazy dogs involved. And we had so much fun together. But I know she's still with me. And she's up there laughing at me right now because this weekend I've been dog sitting. And those dogs keep shitting on my living room floor. And I know she's getting a good laugh out of that. Thank you.
Well, she lives next door to me, so guess where the neighborhood went? Anyway, great story, and what a great friend you had in Sarah. Okay, this next storyteller, ever since I found out he was the police chief today, I've been getting on his good side. I told him I've been wearing my seat buckle more and not speeding. I'm going only 40 in a 35 mile an hour, lane. So, and he's just kind of looking at me, but he told this great story, but, I'm already looking at him thinking, everyone here has a story, everyone. And he goes, my wife has a great story. So when she moves here, she signed up already. She doesn't even know it. She signed up already. So I've been going on all evening, and I forgot I meant to put a disclaimer that anybody involved in this event is not responsible for anything that comes out of my mouth, okay? I forgot that early on. So I want to introduce and please welcome James Harris.
I have to move around, so I'm going to take the mic. My name is James Harris. I'm the Chief of Police for the Bethel Police Department, and it's very nice to be here, and I would like to thank you all for being here and welcoming me. So I've done a lot of traveling in my lifetime, and I have been to a lot of areas and a lot of different communities. And I can honestly say that Bethel has been one of the most welcoming places that I have ever been to. And one thing that I have realized over the years of all of my travels is that there's cultures of all different kinds of cultures in this great big world and in this big country that we live in. And we all have more in common than we have differences. And that's what this story is going to be about, kind of. I know that Bethel has a large number of hunters and fishermen, and this is a story, as everybody knows that's done any hunting or fishing of any kind, they know that there's a story every time we go out in the woods, every time. There's something new that's going to happen, and it's always going to be memorable. Well, this particular story happened for my first elk hunt, which actually occurred on my 16th birthday. And I had been hunting in the Gila National Forest in New Mexico all of my life, literally all of my life with my brother. And this was going to be my very first elk hunt. So I was very excited. This is kind of a rite of passage in New Mexico for us to go out and hunt. My brother had told me that this was the hunt that was going to mean something to me. So I went out. We got out into the woods. My brother dropped me off at a specific area that I wanted to hunt in. And he took off and he went to where he was going to hunt. So I walked out into the woods and I sat down on an old stump, put all my gear on, got ready to go. And something just didn't feel right that morning. Something just wasn't the same as it always had been. So I got up and I started walking through the woods and just couldn't get rid of that feeling that there was something different. It almost felt like something was watching me. So walked to a specific area overlooking a huge meadow, and I sat up against an oak tree that was out there, and I was watching, looking out, and you know how it is when you sit there long enough, you're just like, all right, something's got to happen sooner or later. Nothing was happening, so finally I decided, you know what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk and see if I can find someplace else to hunt. Just as I stood up, a huge 6x6 elk stepped out into the meadow, right out, probably 200 yards away from me. Beautiful, beautiful animal. And I was like, you know, all right, this is my chance. So I took my rifle, I took aim, and just as I was getting ready to pull the trigger, I heard a low growl. And I looked out of the corner of my eye, and there was a mountain lion that was also stalking that elk. And it was not only stalking that elk, but when I pulled my weapon up, it was looking at me. And I thought, this ain't good. So that mountain lion and I were looking at each other and looking at that elk and looking at each other and looking at that elk. And finally I decided, you know what? I bet that mountain lion has babies to feed, and I can go to Walmart. So I decided I'm going to let this animal have this kill. And just as I was getting ready and I was backing away, I hear a big old rustling going on, and that elk had taken off, and that mountain lion was sprinting across that meadow, and then all of a sudden it stopped dead in its tracks, and it turned and looked at me, and then I went, uh-oh. So I hastened my retreat a little bit, started moving backwards, and I got to an area, and all of a sudden that cat started coming towards me, and then it caught wind, caught scent of that elk again, and it was gone. And I was thinking to myself, two things. One, wow, that was amazing. That was something incredible to witness. Second thing was, I need some dry clothes. So I started heading back to where I was supposed to meet with my brother, and I was kind of reflecting back on this whole thing, and I was thinking, wow, you know, my brother's never going to believe this story. He's just never going to believe it. But that's okay, because this is a story that's mine. I know it happened. I was there. I know that I was part of the great circle of life just now. And there was 2 hunters in those woods that morning. And I have taken that with me every day. Every time I go into the woods, I remember that particular thing, because that is a situation that will live with me until the day I die. Thank you.
I look so good in it, especially with my ruby slippers. How does this cowgirl look? I didn't think you were going to give it to me, but try get it back. I told him earlier, if he has any trouble and needs somebody to kick butt, just call me. Next, I'm so excited. We're going to hear from PNKS a little bit later after this next storyteller. She's a wonderful person, grew up in this region, lived in Anchorage a long time, came back to teach. Please welcome Alice Rearden. You want to borrow the cowboy hat?
No. I might be too nervous. I'm a teacher at VRHS, and I've lived here since the pandemic, 2020. But I grew up in Apakyak, just downriver, and so I know this area pretty well. The time that I spent in Anchorage, over 20 years, I interviewed elders and wrote books with a great team at the Jalista Elders Council. And so in my early 20s, I was listening to stories from elders in our region. So I'm not telling a personal story today. I'm telling a couple of stories that I've heard. I heard stories growing up, but not from great orators. There were stories here and there. And I remember Esther Green. She made a little bit of an impact in my life too when I was in kindergarten, well, second grade. We used to listen to her stories of tape recorded stories. So that was really awesome. I wish she was here, but I will tell her some other time. The first story I'm going to tell is a Qulirak. A Qulirak is like an origin story for Yupiit people. So a lot of our origin stories have a grandmother and a grandchild living together. So there was a grandmother and a grandson living together alongside a river. And it just kept raining and raining. And so the young boy got annoyed and was a little bored staying inside. So he walked in, and there was always a drum hanging above the grandmother. So he said, "Mauluk, grandmother, can you please drum and change the weather?" So she took down the drum and she started singing this song. She said, I will drum, but you let me know if the weather changes right away. You let me know right away. So she started singing this song. Ang iuret, ang iuren kaha, at kaling maligaha, buyungudaha, sura nga kitagamani. It's like a little chant. And I don't even know the meanings to the words, except at the end she says, go out. So he runs out the door and checks the weather. And he looks outside and it had stopped raining. And he could see clear across the river. There was a storage cache. He could see the storage cache, and he was like, oh, this is too much fun. So he runs inside, and the grandmother said, "Doshukka." So how is it? Jimiksaituk. He said, it didn't change. Jalikidak, hurry up and drum again. So she takes her drum, and she starts singing that same song. Ang iuret, ang iuren kaha, at kaling maligaha, buyungutaha, sura kitagamani. So he runs out and he checks, and it's like beautiful weather. It's sunny, it's like middle of the summer. Birds are flying, there's caribou roaming the hills on the other side. And he's like, oh, this is great. You know, it's nice and hot out. He even got sweaty, so he runs inside. And then his grandmother said, "Doshukka." So how is it? He said, "Jimiksaituk." So she starts drumming again. And so this time she said, "Ang iuret, ang iuren kaha, at kaling maligaha, buyungutaha, sura kitagamani." So he runs out, and there's a fire outside. It's burning, and the fire had already destroyed their cache, and it was coming up really fast to their house. So he runs inside. He was like, "Doi, chawyak piknak, stop drumming. Go, it's burning." And she said, "I thought I told you to tell me right away when it started to change." So she said she dug next to her and pulled out a bag, pulled out a weasel skin and threw it at him, and she took the other one and she said, "Angulaluku, jukluku," bite on it and then blow on it. And so he did that. He bit on it a little bit to moisten it, and then by then the fire had already gone into their house and was burning their house. So they quickly blew on it and put those weasel skins on and started digging into the side of the house and digging as fast as they could. But the fire got their tails, the end of their tails, and that's why weasels have a black tip on their tail. So from then on, they continued to be weasels, and that's how we have weasels today. Sorry, I'm kidding. We have a lot of our origin stories are like that. You know, how animals came to be. The next one I heard at the Umkumute camp, which is down from Tuksuk Bay. Paul John, who is Dr. Paul John from Tuksuk Bay, told this story. And when he told this story, I remember thinking, what is he talking about? This is just too magical. A few of us were, and I was the translator. I was only in my early 20s, and I needed help translating the story. But in a village long ago, there was a great hunter, and he had a beautiful daughter. She was extremely beautiful, and every young man in that village proposed to her or asked the parents to go propose to her. But the father said, no, not good enough. And in that village, there was a flying parka that was constantly, kind of like a magic carpet, you know? It was just flying around, and it was very elusive. It would only come out mainly at night. And so all the young men would try to catch it, because he told them, he said, whoever catches the parka can marry my daughter. So these young men were constantly trying to catch that parka, but it was very fast and elusive, so they never got it. And after a while, there was another young man that moved into the village. Nobody knew where he came from. He just appeared, and back then, the young men stayed in the qazgik, the men or community house, and he stayed there, and he would help the elders, and he was not a lazy kid. Everybody liked him, and that's how he stayed fed, because the people he helped would give him food to eat. So everybody called him Shirach, which means orphan or orphan boy. And so Shirach came to be a part of that community, but he didn't try to go after the parka like everybody else did. And so one night, it was a full moon. He couldn't sleep. He woke up and he saw that it was, they had a big square window on the top of those old qazgiks, and he could see that it was bright out with the reflection of the moon. So he went outside and he went for a walk. Oh, I forgot to mention one part of the story. Whenever the men went out to go to the ocean, which was nearby and they could see it, he would go beyond the village, and there was a little hill over there. And he would sit there all day, and the woman would see that he was over there quite a distance away. And then when the men would come back from their hunt, he'd just go back to the village and stay with them. So he went out on his stroll, and he was walking along, going up the river, alongside the river, and he started to see the shadow of the flying parka alongside him, and he knew it was the flying parka, and he pretended not to know, and he just was walking, and he was like, I want to see if I can catch this flying parka. So he squatted down and he pretended to anak. So he was sitting, I'm not going to squat, but he was squatting and he was pretending to anak. And as he was there, the shadow of the flying parka just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it was getting closer and closer. And pretty soon he just jumped up and he grabbed it, and he just quickly wrestled with it and held it in his arms. And he's like, yay, I got the parka. But then he was like, yay, I got the parka. He was like, all of a sudden, he got embarrassed thinking about the girl and the great hunter, because he was so prestigious. And he's like, I don't want to bring it over there. This is really embarrassing. But he was like, but I don't want to bring it to the qazgi, one of those young men who's after that girl might take it from me and snatch it. And of course they'll get away with it because I'm not from here. So he was like, I'm just gonna go bring it over to the great hunter's place. So he walked over there. He was still shy, and he kind of waited in the porch area, and all of a sudden the great hunter heard some noise in the porch, and he said, who is it? Come on in. So he goes inside, and pretty soon when he showed up in the dim light, he was holding the parka. He said, Shirach, dailuten, orphan boy, come on, sit right here. Banika, dailuten. He said, my daughter, come over here. This is your new husband. So sit down, my son-in-law. And so he said, you can put the parka on her. So he went over and he put the parka on her, which symbolized that they are married. And that's how they did it back then. The family of the son had to make a parka for the girl, and that symbolized marriage. So he put the parka on her, and he was so happy. He says, Juna, Juna, una atkuk. So he was really happy, saying, you got the parka that nobody could get. And he said, everything of mine is yours from now on. In fact, when you go back to the qazgiq, my spot is yours. You can lay there. You could do, that's your spot from now on, my spot. Go over there and go, he said, you can go sleep in my spot. So he went over to the qazgiq. He walked in, and there was a lot of men and elders in there. So he went over and he lay down in his spot. And as soon as he did that, and he could hear an elder beyond him saying, so unembarrassed and so shameful. How dare he lay in the great hunter's spot? That's just, he was criticizing him. So he just turned around, went to sleep. Back in those days, the women would bring, every man, woman, child had their own bowl or their own dish. So the dishes stayed in the homes, and then they would fill up the dishes for every meal, and they'd bring them into the qazgi. So in the morning, when the women were bringing the dishes up through the tunnel entranceway into the qazgi, all of them. Pretty soon, Lirach was asleep, but he woke up to a lot of commotion, saying, "Oh, look, it's the beautiful girl. She's coming in." Oh, and then when she came all the way up, they said, "Oh, and she's wearing that parka. Wow, amazing. I wonder who caught that parka." And then she came in and she gave it to Lirach, and everybody knew that they were married. So not too long after that, Lirach went to the Nugalbek, the father-in-law, the father of the girl, and he said, "I want to bring your daughter to visit my parents." And he's like, "What, you have parents?" "Of course I do." And he's like, "Well, you can use my sled. You can use anything I have. Of mine is yours. You can use my sled." And he's like, "I have my own sled." And so he brought the girl to that little hill or the knoll beyond the village, and he went over there and he opened up the grass tarp, and he started pulling out his kayak and his sled and his things, and he even had this little grass person, he had been pretending to be sitting over there while he was actually hunting. And he brought his new wife to his village. It turns out that he had heard about this flying parka that nobody could catch, and he decided to go to that village and, kind of deceive them and win over the girl. So that's a story.
Alice, you might not know the meaning of the chant, but after this rainy summer, July, August, if we have it again next summer, I'm calling you up. See if we can change the weather. Okay, well, to end the evening, let's hear again from PNKS.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been a pleasure to hear everyone's stories. We have 2 more songs.
The years fit loosely, slipping out of your clothes. I want my freezy, freaky gloves. To be younger with nothing at all. Oh, younger with nothing at all. Oh, then you said it again. Settle down, live an ordinary life. You're getting old, so act your age. It's such a sad sight. There's no more need to be so interested. It's time you shed your delusional wings. But I wanna be younger with nothing at all. Oh, younger with nothing at all. Oh, then you said it again. Settle down, live an ordinary life. You're getting old, so act your age. You're such a sad sight. Such a sad sight. it's nothing at all. Oh, nothing at all. Oh, then you said it again. Settle down, live an ordinary life. You're getting old, so act your age. You're such a sad sight. You're such a sad sight.
Thank you.
Paul's kind of modest, so I'll speak for him. That was a Paul Basile song, I should mention. Paul Basile original.
This is a Kevin Morgan song.
Yeah, this next song is a song I wrote. It's so I really like 2-chord punk rock. Like if I really like simple songs. And the simpler a song is, the harder it is to play and perform and write. You know, because if you have a lot of chords and a lot of notes, it sounds good. 3 chords, you know, that's a lot of chords. You're down to 2 chords. Now you're talking like hard music. I haven't mastered 1-chord punk rock yet, but you know, that's like you have to be like Jedi level to do that.
There's time.
Yeah, there's time. So this song's called "Lost in the Crowd." My feet are tired from walking around. The daily grind is grinding me down. I've been myself a little too long. It's time to get lost, lost in the crowd, lost in the crowd, lost in the crowd. You can hold out until you give in. When you're against everyone, everyone wins. So why should you fight to be yourself when you're just gonna lose like everyone else, like everyone else, like everyone else? So why should we do what's been done before? Do it again, then do it some more. Let someone else figure it out. It's time to get lost, lost in the crowd, lost in the crowd, lost in the crowd. Mr. Paul Basile on the guitar. Mr. Shane Iverson on the drums. Mr. Nate DeHaan on the bass.
And Kevin Morgan.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere because I want to get a group picture. Okay, folks. Oh my gosh, let's give everybody another hand. That was such an awesome evening tonight. I hope everybody just enjoyed it. I did, but I want to make sure before you go that you know again that it's the Southwestern Alaska Art Guild and the Kuskokwim Consortium Library and KYUK that made this all happen. So a big hand to all the folks there. The sound guys in the back, Paul, and I forgot your names back there, but good job. All the storytellers, and we're going to turn on the lights because I want all the storytellers to come up and line up here with me and the band. And we're going to sing the last song. Remember that one? Never mind.